Hi, I'm JP Symons with Lead to Great. I'd like to talk with you a bit about one of my favorite topics, which is goal setting. We've heard about resolutions. We've looked at them throughout the year a lot of times, and sometimes a specific time of the year. And resolutions end up not going anywhere, being half done, unfulfilled, whatever it may be. But goal setting is a much more sophisticated process, and I'd like to share some elements of what could make that more successful for you. A few years ago, I put together a kind of a quadrant chart here that looked at some key elements of the process of experiencing life. Satisfied and dissatisfied is one spectrum here. And we've all had those people in our life where they've said to us, even as a child, I am dissatisfied with your performance or your behavior or whatever it may be. So we began to try to modify that behavior, and we move from dissatisfied to at least up to here. And we say to the person, well, are you happy now? Are you satisfied? No, I'm just not dissatisfied. So we discovered that we're kind of neutralized here. The next spectrum is this pain-pleasure threshold here. And every psychological study has talked about this threshold of moving away from pain toward pleasure, at least hopefully. That as we move from pain, just about right here, that pain begins to subside. And we say, boy, that really feels good. That feels better. When in fact, it's not really pleasurable. It just stopped hurting. So once again, we've come to a screeching halt about here and about here from the satisfied, dissatisfied spectrum. And we're kind of mediocrity right here. So let me talk to you a little bit what begins to happen in those areas here. What we find is that in that spectrum of satisfied and pleasurable, that's where we can be happy. But how do we get there? And I'll cover that in a minute. But look what happens over here where we're satisfied with pain. This is quite frankly self-destructive behavior. Now, I'm not going to play psychologist with you today, but that is something we need to stay away from. That when we find ourselves being satisfied, well, that's what I deserve. I should have that. I should live my life, the rest of my life, in this sense of pain, and I'll be satisfied with that. Not a good place to be. Across from that is where we find pleasure, and we're dissatisfied. Well, that's kind of an empty spectrum here, where we're emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically empty, drained. We're happy or pleasurable with our dissatisfaction. We're pleasing someone, maybe even ourselves. In this part of it, where we have pain and dissatisfied, we're pretty much just unhappy. And people go through life backwards here, where we're satisfied with the pain and dissatisfied with the fact that, well, that's just the way life is. We look at things negatively. We all know people like that. So let's take a look at how we can begin to undo some of this stuff, okay? This is what I call the big 7 areas of life. And I could read them to you, so I'll just go quickly. Career, family, financial, social, spiritual, physical, and mental. These are all areas, there's 7 hats, as it were, that we all wear. Now, unfortunately, the last time I looked, I only have one head. So sometimes these hats will stick on one side from the other. Like I come to work, you come to work, and we're still thinking about our families, thinking about our finances, thinking about our friends that we'd had. We don't feel too well. And as we walk in the door, someone says, well, don't bring your personal stuff to work. Well, guess what? That's not going to work because we only have one head and we got all these hats. So if I ask you to set goals in each of these areas here, now we run into another problem, because how will we prioritize these things? Where should I start? And sometimes people feel guilty or unhappy about the fact that they may put, social above family, or they may put financial above the social or the career, and we begin to struggle with, well, how do I prioritize this and where do I start? Let's see if I can make that easier for you. Let's put it in a circle so that each of these begins to support the other. So I've got career here. You can put it anywhere you want. But then you have the financial and the physical and the social and the spiritual and the mental. Let me pause for mental just a second because you may not be clear on what that's all about. And setting goals for our mental wellness is, do you have the kind of education that you want, the credentials that you want, the certifications that you want? Are you reading enough, the kind of books that give you a sense of pleasure or help to fulfill other areas of your life as well? How are you feeding this particular component of your life? Okay, so this is the big 7 areas. So that's what mental is all about. Everything else is kind of self-explanatory. So what happens is, I'm going to ask you about satisfied and dissatisfied, pleasure and pain, as it overlays on top of all of this. Got the picture? Okay. So if I were to say, how satisfied are you in your career? And let's just say that, well, I'm about a 6. Okay. And how happy are you with that? So you can actually create another circle and do a different diagram of just whether it's happy or not. So he begins to build a better picture of how this whole thing begins to look and how your life looks and how the goals look and how they're supporting one another. But let's just look at satisfied and dissatisfied right now. Financially, maybe things have gone bad in the last couple of years and you spent a lot of money and not made a lot of money and it's kind of draining. So let's give it a 3. Okay, that's the family. I'm sorry. So that we'll make this financial. And families over here. And the families get along pretty well. Kids are getting married, they're going to school or whatever it may be, and you're feeling pretty darn good about that. I might give that an 8. By the way, it's going to cost a little bit more to make that happen sometimes. And so maybe you have to modify your career to make more money. You see where this is going? Okay. Satisfied, dissatisfied. Okay. How satisfied are you with your social life? Do you have enough friends, the kind of friends that you like and then that you enjoy? Are you getting to see them as often as you like? So let's say I'll give it a 5. Okay. Spiritual. Once again, we can play with this a couple different directions here. Just the basic spirit of the person. We all know people that are up and they're happy all the time and they don't seem to be on drugs. But they're just happy people. They have good, strong spirits. Another component of that could be your spiritual life, like with God or other supreme being or a creator of some kind. That's what goes in here. You decide. But how is your spirit? Let's say I'd like a 7 on the spirit thing. So you begin to see how this wheel is starting to look here. How about physical? Are you happy with your weight? Do you need more? Need less? What's your endurance look like? Are you trying to work on making your bone structure stronger? Would you like to spend a little more time running, swimming, bicycling, just being more active? How satisfied are you or dissatisfied are you with your physical self? So let's give that a 7. Okay? And finally, the mental thing I mentioned earlier. Do you have the credentials? Do you have the education? Are you filling this up with the kind of stuff that is going to help all the rest of this as well? So I'm going to give that a 9. Now, if you look at this as if it was an orange, so it has 3 dimensions, so you can actually pull out these sections and it go all the way to the core. And then you notice I haven't done anything with this core, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. But if you were to eliminate all of this out here, you begin to see how this thing is going to roll. It will roll, but it's going to be bumpy. Okay? It's going to bounce you around. That's why sometimes you go, man, things aren't just moving as smoothly as they should. Well, it's not because maybe one area, it could be because of another area that is influencing the entire process of how we function and how we roll along through life. You begin to see what's going on here. Back to goal setting. Whatever these scores are, the next question is, what would give you the greatest sense of satisfaction and the greatest sense of pleasure that would fill this in? Every one of them. So don't worry about the priorities. Just be focused on going through each one of these and identifying what would take me from here to here. And that would be in that upper right-hand quadrant where you're happy. Okay? as we go through here, all the way through here, we begin to get some idea in the goal setting process of what would fulfill or fill in all of my life, okay? The next piece here becomes a little more specific. Goals are dreams with a deadline, okay? Without deadlines, without some specific target date or time, you're living in a dream world. I know people in all 7 areas of their life, that's where they are. They are stuck in that sense of dream. And sometimes, quite frankly, they're happy there. That's time for therapy. So what we're talking about here is goals with deadlines, dreams with deadlines that give us a sense of purpose and function and pull us into our future, okay? Future pull. Once we've done the goal setting process, what would give us the greatest sense of satisfaction and pleasure in the circle of life, okay, in that sphere we're looking at that point, we now know what the future looks like, and we begin to pull ourselves to that future rather than pushing a rope toward the future and making a mess out of things, okay? The 3 greatest fears of goal setting. This is not failing at goals. This is not setting goals at all. And the 3 are in this order. The fear of failure. That's number 1. The number 1 reason why people don't even set goals. People run out of the room screaming, "You're not going to make me fail at the goal setting process." So that's number 1, fear of failure. The next reason for not setting a goal, this is not getting a goal and not making it, this is not even starting, is fear of ridicule. People making fun of you, people saying, "Oh, you can't do that, you wouldn't do that. Why would you want to do something like that? That's stupid." So fear of ridicule. By the way, I'll pause here just for a second and say, if you have a goal, never, ever, ever, ever share it unless you know the person you're sharing it with will support you emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically. It's critical. Share your goals only with those people that are supportive. It goes back to that social component of your life as well. That's who you want to pick to be a part of your group, okay? So it helps reduce the ridicule issue. And then finally, the number 3 reason, most common reason why we don't even set goals, our fear of success. That we think that, well, gosh, if I reach this, then someone's going to expect me to go even farther. I got to jump higher, run faster, make more money, spend more time, whatever it's going to be. Oh my goodness. So what happens here, it becomes much more compelling for mediocrity. I'll not be that successful. I'll just be successful enough that people won't ridicule me and I won't feel like a failure. Finally, the number 1 goal killer is you. If you go back to that circle that I made and showed you with the life components, at the very center of that was another circle with a little Y in the middle of it, and that Y stands for you, here. That you never change. That's the potentiality component of the circle of life. Your potential is always a 10. Always a 10. So that whenever you are looking at and identifying, I'm a 2, I'm a 3, I'm a 10, or where it may be, that you, at the core being of your life, is always a 10. The other component that kills goals is vagueness. Vagueness simply means it's not specific. It's kind of, sort of. I ask people, would you like more money? They go, yeah. Well, how much? More. That's called vagueness. Okay? Be specific. So you kill your goals, and you kill them by the lack of specificity, and there are 4 other components that help create that. And in the book I've written called Getting to Why, and there's a website associated with that, www.gettingtowhy.com, will take you through all the other steps of the goal setting process and help you hopefully be much more successful living in the happy quadrant of our lives. I appreciate the opportunity to share my passion with you and to talk with you more about where we're going to go in our life together and hopefully become friends. This is J.B. Symons. Be happy.